Hello 7 citizens, Black here from Casa Black Gaming, and today I wanted to dive into a subject that seems to have shaken things up this week, which is the Jumptown A2 bomb ramming tactic that sent popular Star Citizen streamer Morphologist on a Twitter tangent, and from what I've heard, also on his stream. Now, I'm not here to belittle the situation or provide adequate salt or fuel for either side. My video today is more about the larger issue that was mentioned in some of the replies from the tweets, that being popular streamers and their influence over game design changes. To me, the bombing tactic is not the truly important story here. Now, while I understand both sides, the side of thinking it's not fun gameplay going after a single person who can just drop in and destroy everything, that's subjective, and also not a valid reason to try and use your influence for change. There are ways to prevent it through teamwork, whether that be through your org or server communication, and whether someone thinks that having many people patrolling the skies to go after a bombing threat is fun or not is not one influencer should be able to dictate. This is a space sim and a war sim, and in war, either side will exploit things until it doesn't work or is not worth the time or effort. Now, the one thing that hopefully comes from this is that CIG looks at its penalties for gamers trying to exploit things like this, and not necessarily a ship or weapons nerf. This is a very specific incident for a very specific gameplay loop, so why nerf the actual ship or damage when what would probably work best is adjusting cost of things such as the bombs themselves, or to not auto spawn with bombs and make them something that has to be picked up if your ship is destroyed. Now, the cost alone should be better adjusted for the kind of havoc they can wreak, and also perhaps better insurance claiming penalties so a player maybe who loses something as big as an A2 cannot come right back within 10 or 15 minutes with another one. Maybe after the first reclaim time, it goes up if the ship is blown up again within the first hour. We've seen similar respawn timers that increase in other games with PvP, so it's not something new here. But my message here is really not about the bomb tactic itself. I've said all I really care to say about that, but I really wanted to drill down on the idea that larger content creators can misuse their influencing and why for a game like Star Citizen it's bad and not really welcome here. Now, I'm a very small content creator with not much of a following, especially to have my own opinion, other than some basic ship reviews and loadouts for beginning players. Now, I certainly have not been following the game as long as most of the more established content creators here, but that doesn't mean that I'm a noob gamer scrub either, and the arguments we're seeing here are the same in almost any live service game, with the only major difference here being that Star Citizen is still in alpha and things will be changing a lot, and the devs really look at some of our feedback here and pay attention to things, which is why whenever Morphologist threw out this tweet about how he did not find size 10 bombs dropped by the A2 fun or engaging, it sent shockwaves through the community. The only thing I found to be thankful for with this incident is that people stood up and disagreed. Now, had that tweet not been challenged, would devs have nerfed something without both sides being equally argued for? What about other incidents where a Star Citizen influencer might have mentioned something that led to a change in the game, whether that be something as small as a cosmetic design change or something related to DPS? Has this happened multiple times and we're not aware of it, or do CIG basically only make a large move on something like this if there are a lot more comments from both sides and it trends? It's hard to imagine that there is not a single case where something has been changed based off of something an influencer says. This is a very real issue, and one that was even tackled by the Apple TV show Mythic Quest, where a very young influencer pretty much had those game devs by the balls. And while that was fictional television, it really isn't that far from the truth when you consider things like last year's Final Fantasy record-breaking concurrency numbers after streamer and influencer Asmongold went from playing WoW to Final Fantasy XIV, along with a couple of other popular streamers. Not only did Asmongold have some of his biggest numbers ever, but Final Fantasy reaped the benefits as well, which in the following months actually led to the Final Fantasy devs doing an interview with him and allowing him to check out new features for their, at the time, upcoming expansion Endwalker. Granted, we're talking about two way more popular games than Star Citizen, but even still, this year we saw Ollie 43 and Level Cap Gaming help bring a lot more new citizens, and along with them, funding into the game, and you can clearly see a jump in numbers, money, and interest. So we really cannot say that YouTube and Twitch influencing is not something that CIG does not take into account when they clearly benefit when influencers are playing their game. Of course, there are many more examples of influencers, influencing games across the spectrum, and I guess in the end, it's just going to come down to the trust for us players. We have to hope and trust that CIG will do the right thing when it comes to their interactions with influencers and how they handle when things flare up on any given situation, as we've seen here this week. What changes will come from this? It'll be interesting to see if anything is done at all. Now, one huge noticeable thing that many people underestimate is CIG's future plans for things. Now, just a few months ago, we didn't have the Anvil Centurion, which, while it did not completely make A2's bombing a thing of the past, collectively with other ships that may or may not be in the game yet, they can help ease the situation and bring about a new way to combat strikes from above. With further ship revamps and new weapon types still to come, might CIG just be sitting on the sidelines laughing at both sides because they know something game-changing is on the horizon? Again, this can be why CIG has been silent on this, or why they won't wade into the water here as they shouldn't. The one thing I know from this argument and this huge influencer's opinion is that CIG has heard about it, is aware of it, and will make something happen. Will it be what makes morphologists happy, or will it be something that benefits the overall Star Citizen community as a whole? I myself hope for the latter because influencers come and go, but this game should be around for years to come, even if it's never fully released before many of us die. Now, remember to be kind to your fellow gamer, keep things respectful, even if your opponent takes the low road, and stay positive, citizens.